A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So, what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode, Travis King at Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Mark Scott, who is the Chief Marketing Officer over at Apixio. Mark, what is going on, my friend?
Hey, not much, Travis. Thanks for having me.
Of course, super excited to have you on the show. So today, you're going to be sharing with listeners the difference between, what used to be healthcare marketing and kind of where it's evolved into today, and a little bit about the differences of, how it's no longer viewed as, B2B per se, and how having a B2B and B2C, world is actually kind of what we're operating in now. It's not, these two complex arenas. And, but before we get into that, I'd love for you to share with listeners a little bit about yourself and what you and the team at Apixio are up to these days.
Sure. Thanks, Travis. I am not a transition into healthcare marketing. I have spent probably the last 20 years of my career in marketing, both on the biotech, med tech, and now the AI analytics space in healthcare. I currently work for Apixio, as you mentioned. We're an AI company. In the US, every year they create 1.2 billion clinical documents each and every year. If you believe what they say out there, that 80% of those documents are largely unstructured, meaning they're the written word, and most of those go underused or unused in the provision of your care, there's a huge gap in the understanding of what's going on with you. So what Apixio does is we've created this AI platform that processes this structured data found in clinical documents. We have a proven AI platform. At the conclusion of this year, we'll process 14 million patient lives, which is the equivalent of about 850 million document pages of clinical documents. And we take that data and we convert it into actionable analytics. And we have some solutions around risk, quality, and clinical insights that really drive better clinical decision making. And we believe a smarter approach to healthcare that will decrease the cost of care and hopefully increase better patient outcomes. And that's what we're up to. So we're marketing that in the healthcare space.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. I think, this would be a good point to dive into the topic a little bit. And I'm curious, Mark, where was, the healthcare industry from a marketing perspective, kind of when you got into it, and kind of what are some of the differences that you find now in being, in the trenches day to day?
Yeah, great question. Healthcare, I go back 15, 20 years. Healthcare marketing and healthcare in general, from an adoption perspective, was always seen as the, stodgy, grumpy old uncle, right? The curmudgeon of the family, slow moving, wasn't really adept to change. And that has fundamentally changed over the last 15 years. Just to kind of paint the contrast, in the early days, it was a typical B2B enterprise always sell. Largely medical technology or medical devices, not a lot of analytics or digestible software outside of the enterprise dashboard. So the marketing was largely sell sheets and sales support. And anyone who was in the space back then knows, I mean, it was literally a rainbow of sell sheets, trade shows and events. And then you started seeing the industry evolve a little bit as competition increased. We saw new entrants in the data, analytics, and SaaS space as healthcare began to adopt that. You saw the user experience being fundamentally more important. The personas you were selling, your user and chooser personas, became more involved and invested in the decision-making. You saw decision-making in those payer and provider customers get distributed across the enterprise more widely. So marketing had to adapt. So that typical B2B enterprise, sales folks carrying a bag full of product slicks, talking about the ROI and the value propositions had to change. As connectivity changed, websites started popping up. We had to push content. Content became king and central to our communication strategy as one of the key levers we could pull to connect with our customers. And that connection became the most important thing. How do you connect to your customer in a meaningful way and communicate what you do, the value you bring, and create more of a community around it? This is a time when communities were big, right? Social platforms were growing. You had online communities and boards and user groups. And that really kept evolving. And, you could blame some traditional consumer companies on speeding up the evolution, like Apple. They fundamentally changed the notions of user experience and expectations. But how we looked at our customers fundamentally had to change in healthcare. We had this old assumption, Travis, that 15 years ago, that our B2B buyer, our user and chooser, our persona, was, if it was a doctor or a chief medical officer or a CFO of a healthcare system, that they had fundamentally different beliefs and their user experience or adoption curves looked completely different than they did in their spare time when they weren't wearing that hat. And that started shifting, right? Because a nurse or a physician isn't different. They don't make different buying decisions at work than they do in their home life. They're influenced by different things, budgets, patient needs versus budgets at home versus, permission to buy. Did your partner give you permission to buy that, or did you come home with it? So that was a fundamental change, I think, that people had to make. And you had to start treating that customer not as a B2B widget or a thing. And that's why I always like to say that, when you talk about enterprise sale or healthcare marketing, there's very little differentiation anymore between B2B and B2C. The user expectations, and I believe the user experience is the only one that really matters in this equation. That user experience, both from all their interactions from your brand, they expect the same level of quality and interaction from you as a healthcare company than they do from their Apple device or Android device. So that's how I think it's evolved. We have more access to information. How we understand our personas that we're going after has fundamentally shifted, and we've had to shift. And that notion that someone at work makes different decisions than when they're at home, we have new ways of influencing that behavior and ways of looking and measuring at it than we did before.
Hey everybody, Logan with Sweetfish here. You probably already know that we think you should start a podcast if you haven't already. But what if you have and you're asking these kinds of questions? How much has our podcast impacted revenue this year? How's our sales team actually leveraging the podcast content? If you can't answer these questions, you're actually not alone. This is why Casted created the very first content marketing platform made specifically for B2B podcasting. Now you can more easily search and share your audio content while getting greater visibility into the impact of your podcast. The marketing teams at Drift, Terminus, and here at Sweetfish have started using Casted to get more value out of our podcasts, and you probably can too. You can check out the product in action at casted.us/growth. That's casted.us/growth. All right, let's get back to the show.
Got it. No, that makes 100% sense. And as I'm kind of thinking about this out loud, it's pretty much imagining like if you want someone to actually meaningfully connect with your brand, you have to evoke emotion. You have to bring in things that they care about, appeal to their interests, and give them some sort of value that's outside of well, you're going to need to buy this anyway, so just buy it from us.
Agreed. And that's the second point. You hit the nail on the head, Travis. Brand has fundamentally become more important in healthcare than it ever has. And, I think what people often do when they look at brand, they think of, a logo, a color palette, and hey, we want everything to look the same. And if that, then we're good. Healthcare is a tricky space still for a lot of reasons. How you communicate and the channels and when are different than the consumer space. And so are the user needs. And brand is not maybe even more important, but just as important. Trust is so important in healthcare. People, I work for a Valley company. And I've seen Valley healthcare companies go to a pitch and say, hey, founded in 2014, and we have this many employees and this much revenue. And that's a scary thing for a healthcare buyer. A healthcare purchaser doesn't want to buy the unproven newest thing that was launched 6 months ago. And that is the definable difference between a consumer space, which the risk of buying something, a new phone, is, well, the phone doesn't work, not someone's going to die. So trust being so important in healthcare means that brand is just as important, because brand and the consistency of your brand message and that user experience. I was talking about user experience is the only one that matters. If your user experience is good, how you treat your customer through contracting, the sales process, your marketing messaging, your follow-up, your support downstream, if all of that is consistent, consistency builds and breeds trust when it comes to brand. Inconsistency is what fractures that brand experience. And that brand experience is much wider and deeper than a logo or a color palette or a piece of collateral. It's all those other things that I believe is fundamentally what has changed and blurred the lines between B2B and B2C. That user experience, your website even, and how it looks and feels. People primarily make assumptions about the quality of your offering based on how you look and feel. And that, paying attention to that, builds that trust and credibility, which will only support that brand. And going beyond, as you have suggested, that your corporate positioning and your mission is something that people can be a part of, that they can believe in and buy into. Those are the companies that stick around a long time. And those are the companies that have trusted brands in the space.
Love that. And I'm curious too, speaking off of that, to kind of go to, I guess, the next stage. And can you talk to us a little bit about how you've been able to differentiate your brand positioning and build trust with your potential, clients and customers over at Apixio for other marketers so they can kind of hear, how you're doing it currently?
Sure. We were in a actually pretty challenging position early on. Apixio, we're coming up on our 10th anniversary, actually.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. For a Valley data company, it's pretty tremendous. And we entered the space with this machine learning platform doing things. We were disruptive in the space. When you even just talk about our risk adjustment tech, application, it was disruptive. We were just disrupting traditional methods that were manually done. And we came in with technology, sped things up tremendously. So we had to overcome a mountain of trust and credibility. And I think that's one of the things from a brand and corporate marketing perspective that we've continued to focus on. So when you're a company that's bringing to market a new technology or changing practice methods, you have to walk before you run. So we focused like the brand experience was our primary focus on our user experience. We had to deliver outstanding results. We had to deliver an outstanding customer experience. And then we had to leverage the outcomes of those for our retargeting and our marketing and our growth plan, right? Because again, that trust and credibility in healthcare, if that's key, proving it is important. You have to prove it. You have to prove that you have the scale, the reliability, and the results that people can buy into. And leveraging those customers as references and resources and testimonials downstream really helped us, especially being a new technology in what traditionally was seen as a slow-moving segment, right? So understanding that every touch point is important in the early days and that experience is key to success, to that next step. Because customers don't like to give testimonials if they don't trust you, if they don't believe in you, if they don't think you're going to be around in a year, if they didn't get the results they anticipated. So managing those expectations, delivering on those results, and then mining those, I think really helped us build that foundation of trust. And it amplified our success through our PR activities and other content strategies that we currently implement.
Got it. No, thanks so much for sharing that, Mark. I think that's one testament to realizing that at the end of the day, no matter where you start, especially if you start in a disruptive space like healthcare, and you're bringing such a new technology to the table, you have to build trust. Otherwise, you might not get a second shot.
Agreed. And especially if you're new, there's always fast followers who might not have the proven technology you do, but it's those results and that trust which will, give you that lead, so to speak, and maintain it. And we've been very fortunate in that regard to have, fabulous partners, customer partners.
Love it. Love it. So as we're wrapping up, B2B growth has always been about highlighting tactics and strategies that B2B leaders can apply to their own teams to achieve explosive growth. And I'm curious, is there a new sales or marketing strategy that your team is currently trying or thinking about in the near future that you want to share with us?
I think when we were talking earlier, I kind of touched on this. We have, as marketers, we have access to so much information and data. It's amazing, from sales stages to velocity through the funnel to how many touch points, where they've been. We got retargeting programs. We can follow them all over the internet now. But I think we've almost, as marketers, been overwhelmed by this data and almost blinded by it sometimes. And I think this notion of, I think our inboxes and email and digital marketing has become the junk mail of yesteryear, essentially. So I really believe that what was old school is new school again. So creating those things, those customer experiences and touch points that are personal, that are real, mailing things again. We recently did this program where we had these customer boxes filled with things that were related to our offering that were delivered to some targets. And the response rate was incredible comparatively. Now, you could argue email and digital marketing is lower effort, but there's a reason for that. And it's kind of whittled down to the response rate of junk mail of yesteryear. And how much mail do we get nowadays? Not much, right? So, sending something that's meaningful, timely, and targeted, and using some of those what have been called old school marketing methods and bringing traditional advertising back in a more targeted way. We have all the analytics to prove it now. We can adapt and change a lot more easily than throwing an ad in a newspaper or waiting 3 weeks for direct mail responses to trickle in and see if it had an impact on response rates. I mean, when you combine those traditional methods or old school methods with what we're doing digitally today, I think you get the insights and the adaptability and the speed to impact that we never had before.
Love it. I really love that. And I think that's such a great way to end. And for everyone listening, definitely remember that old school always works, because at the end of the day, humans are humans and everybody loves to physically touch and use their senses. And exactly to Mark's point, the emails and digital marketing doesn't really allow people to utilize their senses. It's just another annoyance or another piece of the screen. So when you're thinking about how to, orchestrate your marketing campaigns or orchestrate your next sort of strategy, definitely consider adding in, an old school approach, whether that be letters, whether that be boxes, like Mark mentioned, with different things that your customers might find valuable. Just think about, different ways to reach your target customer that is not digital. And I think, you'd be surprised at the results that you find. So this has been such an awesome conversation, Mark. I really appreciate the nuggets and all the value that you brought. If listeners want to stay connected with you or follow you to ask any other questions on this topic, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Scott at Apixio, or you can email me directly at mscott@apixio.com.
Thanks, Mark. We really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks, Travis. Appreciate it.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.